Hey everybody, it is episode 9, and hopefully I've sent the invite to Sean as we're both separate today, and we really want to have him on because we're going to be talking about Aquascape and how we've integrated it into the Rockscape way. So one of the main things is you're going to have to be a little bit patient with me. Sean, are you there? Maybe. One second. Uh, Invite. Okay. Add. Maybe. Adding. It says adding. I'm sure we'll have to crop this part out in the updated versions, but we really want to have a good discussion, and I want to be able to invite other people onto these lives and onto these discussions. Hey, can you hear me?
Hello.
Perfect. We're good at it. We're working. Okay. So today's episode 9, is all about Aquascape meets Rockscape. So we had a recent visit with Greg Whitstock and Derek and Sasha from Team Canada for Aquascape. I thought it was kind of a perfect opportunity to, one, reflect on the visit, and two, to talk about the fact that we are integrating the Aquascape technology into both our real rock application and artificial rock. So we have in the past almost done what you hear every story of the contractors trying to fit together pool parts or sand filters and things to try and make up a pond feature of some type. And you and I have now started to explore the Aquascape technology for the first time about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I would say, is when the first time we integrated it. And then
Yep.
last year was the very first time that we integrated it into a major project, a pondless waterfall in downtown Toronto. And then right after that, the first habitat that we did it at the Toronto Zoo. And so first, I would love to have you reflect a little bit on the visit, the first time you got to meet Greg, and kind of hear their version and how they see us fitting.
Very interesting with Greg because, as we said, like the man doesn't small talk, so he just kind of goes right for it. And I think like we're sitting there at lunch, and obviously you've been down to see them at their storefront. You've gone to the seminars and just talked to the whole crew. So this was my first, real interaction other than, from a sales rep standpoint. This was my first interaction with them. And yeah, he asked me straightforward. He's like, from 1 to 10, what, how supportive of you are of Rockscapes joining um, the Aquascapes team lifestyle and integrating it into what we do? And, obviously I am supportive, but, there's still Rockscapes is the brunt of what we do, and
Mhm.
we've had a few mixed results of trying to integrate some things in. Not mixed results, I guess lessons to be learned, like where we
Mhm.
like their, for example, like their waterfall weirs. Like when when people say what's the difference between real rock and artificial rock, and then we say, with real rock projects, you're putting a liner under the whole thing. You're sort of you're not expecting a real rock feature to hold water necessarily. You're just kind of guiding the water, but the basin itself is what holds the water. Whereas with artificial rock, when we use like a liquid rubber instead of a liner, we're able to
Mhm.
waterproof the pathways in which we send it. So then when we were using like the waterfall weir is expected to um, you know work within their rock, whereas
Work within the liner, yeah.
within the liner, and
Mhm.
then we're trying to butt it up against our concrete, and we were getting leaks. So those are good lessons to learn, and now we found a way. We know so much more about how to use the equipment. And the
Mhm.
key thing about us using the equipment is because we're obviously the most interested in finding a source of equipment where we can utilize it in both real and artificial rock applications, because I don't need
Exactly.
buying, like, I don't need that many SKUs. I don't need that many items on our shelves. If you don't use something on one job, we always like to be able to use it on another, as do any trade. So we don't need different types of everything for different types of features, right? So that was kind of why we were so insistent on trying to make it work. But as I said to him, I'm all game. I'm mostly interested in how they do business, which is very inspiring. We even talked a bit about that when he was riding in the car with me, and he goes, "Yeah, well, we've been doing it 25 years." So I was like, "Well, we've been doing it 38 years, and we didn't learn the lessons that you learned in 25 years." So, like, it doesn't, age is that's the thing, right?
One of the things I will say, even just the visit, so just having Greg come down and visit, you've never heard of the Pentaires of the world or the pool companies that we've worked with ever go out of their way to support, find the work that you've done, film it, and then broadcast it across all socials. I think outside of their technology, that support and interest in their end customer, which is us, it goes a long way, and probably what hooked me the earliest. Just the idea that a manufacturer would support you from in terms of marketing and in terms of education is kind of mind-blowing. Normally, you'll hear about maybe a seminar which you can go and watch, but there's no follow-up. Did you buy your product or didn't you? And that's it.
Yeah.
They want to know how you're doing it, what you're doing it, what the customer thinks about you, so that they know that they're betting on the right horse, which is kind of incredible in my mind, and something that I hope to lean into. And the final thing that he said to us was that we look forward to continuing to support you guys, which is very, very nice to see.
Like, obviously, we don't have the same kind of experience with that as like what I did when I owned the pub, right? Like, and I can give an example of why of a company, like, some people will think that kind of promotion, even engaging with you on social media, is extra.
Yes.
So, like a couple of years ago, we partnered with the Guelph Storm, like at the pub, and they were, we bought the seats, we bought, I think, the section. It said, our company name on the section. We got seasons tickets to give away on our socials at the pub, and we're trying to engage. The Storm has 16,000 followers, and I think we had, I don't know, 1,200 at the time on Instagram, and we're trying to engage its Storm followers. And I brought that up when they asked why I didn't renew, and I said, well, like, we would tag you guys all the time and try to engage in, people that were interested in a ticket, but we couldn't give your tickets away. And it's not that Guelph Storm doesn't have fans, but like, we had fans at the pub necessarily. We were trying to access their fan group, and that's the point of bringing the two together as a partnership, right? And they were like, well, that's an extra package. And I'm like, so on top of the thousands of dollars that you asked me to spend, you also want me to spend extra for you to just, like my Instagram. So obviously, like, some people, like for him, with some of the people we follow, where they're just like, there's certain things you give away for free because that's the low-hanging fruit. Like, if you want to sell your product. Yeah. So, that's a lot of respect to them, and obviously, he's not coming at it necessarily from our followers' perspective, but he gets to constantly show off the way that people use his product. And I think it's very smart how they do that.
And I honestly think that we're probably using it in a completely different way than anybody else. I've actually started to notice in some of the artificial rock groups that more and more people are utilizing the technology, but I would still argue that it's in a different form than we are. We're trying to still maintain the most natural looking feature possible, even with artificial rock. And then so now, instead of cobbling together different products depending on the project. We've almost gone where the pool side has its own products, and then anything self-contained gets to become Aquascape. And the more and more we do it, I feel like it's going to allow training to be easier because the person working on a pond will see the same equipment and understand how to utilize it for artificial rock. And it almost feels like the backyard can finally be translated even into commercial works. And that, for me, feels like a good transition. So the first project we ever did for the Toronto Zoo outside of artificial rock was for the hyena, where we were able to do work with Aquascape and Ed, the pond professor, and Chuck, and actually create a pondless waterfall for the hyenas utilizing the Aquascape technology. And we brought Greg there, showed him how it's actually held up over the last year, because as we know, hyenas are extremely destructive, and that was one of the things that the keepers talked about, is their worry that that essentially they could tear that whole thing apart in seconds. And we were able to show through build quality that this technology can be utilized in commercial settings like the Toronto Zoo, like other major zoos with massive animals. Like the hyena is not a small animal, and if it can handle that, it can pretty much handle anything.
So what did Greg think about the hyena? Because, like, obviously that's a man that's seen a lot of real rock features in his day.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and, you know, hopefully we could show him a little something slightly different. Like, I think the hyena is that bridge of worlds, right? Because we do a fair bit of work, zoo work and habitat creation, and then, you know,
yeah. So we did have
bridge, right?
It was a quick visit, but we had, I think, a fantastic impression. The hyenas were interacting with the water feature in the most ideal way. The zoo helped organize that, and you could see when we were talking to the keeper, we asked the keeper a lot of questions. It was almost like 100 questions in 100 seconds, and there was a traditional water feature next to it that's more like a concrete pool that they actually have to dump and clean every single day. And then we asked, how often have you had to dump, clean, or even refill the pondless water feature? And they admitted that they had only, outside of opening and closing, have not had to do anything to that feature other than to add beneficial bacteria every once in a while. And it's perfectly clean. They haven't had any issues. Yeah, well, that was the main consideration when we were working to bring that feature one, was that there would have to be multiple water tests. They would have to make sure that it was in safe limits, because hyenas like to wash their food. Most big predators want to wash their food in water. They like to roll around in it, and then of course most animals seem to like to defecate in or around the water itself. And plus, like, because it's a natural feature. Yeah, exactly. And because it's a natural water feature, they were getting more outside animals coming in, which was a consideration. So the birds are coming into the hyena for the first time. They said a crane came into the hyena habitat. Now, luckily, the hyena had no wish to interact. Apparently, just walked right by it.
A bunch of school children going by, and was like, oh,
yeah. Yeah, what's happening with that crane? No, not nature. Quite. Exactly, nature. And so that was very fun to actually show. And then I got to take them over to the lion habitat and show them the project Mom and Dad did back in, 97, 96, something along those lines.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a lot of fun to be able to show some of our work, both sides of our work, and then talking with the zoo about, wetland filters and getting to do more natural things and become part of the design team to bring that and integrate it throughout the zoo. It felt like a very big win, and I'll say the visit helped facilitate that. So even though we've known the zoo for 35 or 36 years of the 38 that we've been in business, this was a different type of conversation than we'd ever typically get to have with them. So it was just that alone, being able to say, like, hey, we have the backing of our manufacturer with us here, and they want to help with this and help educate, I think is something that so far to date, no other manufacturer in all 38 years have we ever had. And like, think of our concrete manufacturer, Quikrete. Like, they've supported us actually for the Savannah project, ironically enough, but I don't believe there's ever been marketing put behind us, and we've bought millions of pounds of concrete from them.
Yep.
So, I mean, there's a stark comparison, and it's not like a traditional brand deal that you see with creators these days. I think it's more organic. I think it's because they actually care, which is something new for a corporate world.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's just he's content hungry, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, or I'm assuming he would be. So yeah, it's kind of fun to interact with him, see his process. You know, obviously we're very new to this type of thing, but
Mm-hmm.
that's even getting to like talk to him a little bit about that. You know, and it's interesting. Like him, he's right away. He's like, yeah, let's engage with your page. We're like, well,
Yeah.
I mean, we're like not even a dozen episodes in.
Yeah.
You know,
Let us
so
get comfortable.
it's
Let
just
us figure out
like
what
I
our
feel
path
like
is.
Wayne's World. I feel like we're not worthy. You know, like that kind of
Yeah.
thing. Yeah. That's all I could picture the whole time he was talking was the Wade and Garth just kind of like no.
Yeah, no, that was talking to him about his schedule is kind of crazy. The fact that he knows what he's doing for the rest of the year is quite incredible, and most of it is based around content creation. And he's gotten to go around and visit the rest of Ontario creators, some of whom we invited and hopefully get to talk to this winter on in this format, which is going to be fun. And then what I really wanted to talk about is how you see, let's say, as a percentage of our business, would be aquascape technology versus not. What do you think in our future, or goals, should we say, is our future percentage-wise?
I'd love to get to, I think we had some milestones, right? So I'd love to get to at least 20% first.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because like again, we've talked so much about the big projects are the big projects. The whole reason why we got into this was to fill in some smaller stuff, you know, to be able to engage with a local market.
Mm-hmm.
We've never really been able to do, you know, like these are the smaller features are attainable features, and you know we get to meet some fantastic people along the way. Not that you don't on the big projects, but
It's
it's
a
more like you're
different
meeting other
relationship.
trades. It's
Yeah.
definitely different, right? Like you just built the one, and that
They
family
made
was
me
so
pizza.
great to you. They're making you pizza. You know,
Exactly.
you're talking about the passions like they're normal everyday people, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
there's no angle to it. They just want to like you're creating their oasis, their peace.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that different appreciation. Yeah, it would be nice to have a bit of a balance between that, and that's kind of what we got into. Not that, again, like I said to Greg, the challenge is their recommendation is for anybody getting into it is to start really, really small,
Mm-hmm.
with smaller features. But being that we're 38 years in, we don't get called upon to do a lot of small features, even if it was real rock.
Yeah.
So it's that's a whole different challenge is to get people to think of us in that way, because it's not just about what we like to make. It's also for a training perspective, for our guys, it keeps them very much engaged as well.
Absolutely.
And might even get to be a creative outlet for a few of them, right?
So one of the things that I think the earliest thing you and I talked about in terms of Aquascapes is the fact that they were able to figure out a translatable system that was able to go from every single project, 20 products, 20 steps, and how that was one of the first things that you and I said, this has to become a goal for us, because even though we're building anything from an animal habitat all the way to like a grotto for somebody's backyard, we've never had that so clearly defined. And I think before it's because you, myself, our father, our mother, and every foreman we've ever had puts the creative first, not understanding that the system helps that creative flexibility as the second step. And I think mastering that and allowing a different training process will truly, truly help and help us in the future. So it's not just you and I being the main creative force behind Rockscapes.
I mean, I've definitely tried to articulate it, but yeah, it does make it a little bit easier this way. But you know, like how many guys have we had over the years that you know you're asking them to build something for you, and we haven't even started steel work, and they're like, "Well, I don't know your vision." We're not even worried about the vision. We're just going to build something with right angles right now. We're going to make a structure, and then we'll put the vision on it. Like you guys, I keep trying to. They think it as like this huge art piece, and I'm trying to make them think of it as a veneer. I'm like, but first we got to make our structure, right? So then after that we could get creative. But for right now, like you guys are just making something that's strong. So we've always started with, you know, something to build off of, and then you know steel structure, and then either panel or rebar armatures. So there is steps. It's the same thing.
I agree.
We always follow the same rules from ground up.
I will say, just from thinking back to my beginnings and how large some of our projects are, it's somewhat difficult to think about the individual detail of how water falls and like the volume of water, and working with consistent equipment so you know the type of volume to expect. It's been really, really nice for me to actually get to play more and more with the waterfalls and like really understand the flow of water on a smaller scale. Like typically for
all the math with the pumps and everything
like
that.
The fact that that's all you know, all one search away for any of their type of information, I think is very, very helpful. Now, most of the pond manufacturer or the pump manufacturers are giving that these days, but it's still different when you have a continuously flowing pump versus a pool pump. Like have the pool features we've ever done stay off 90% of the time, and it makes it so that it's almost a shame. Like we spend all this time designing and building these beautiful pieces for the backyard, and to know that they're off more times than they're not is a little bit sad. Whereas with the Aquascape system, a closed loop system, they literally have to be on full time.
Yeah, no, I like it. And again, like being able to rinse repeat really helps, because like you said, it was helpful for you, but you know, when we both started, we would start in the middle of projects, and then
yes,
we've also started plenty of people in the middle of projects, because you know, usually you're doing a very large project that could take a full year. So you know, for somebody, you know, like, unless they're the guys that really stay long term, which, you know, sometimes we've hired students that, you know, those summer students don't get to see a full project, right? So it's hard to relate to them your steps when each step is like 3 months, right?
Yes.
Like you be doing steel work for 3 months before you even start any of the art, right?
Makes them feel almost lost. Anyways, I think this is a good spot to end. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today for episode 9. We're going to keep doing this because we keep loving it, and now we figured out a way that we can even do it where we don't have to be in the same room. And I think this went pretty smoothly, even though Sean looks like he was driving through traffic. So if you don't mind, hit the like, make sure to follow us for more, and leave a comment on any questions you may or may have for future episodes. Cheers, everybody.
See you later.
Bye now.